Mom of two, Brianna, a kindergartner at Whittier K-8 school, whose favorite part of her school day is sight word B, because she always gets a prize. And a little Gabriel, who at 2 years old is our future Whittier student. Whittier K-8 school, you've probably driven by it 100 times. We're up there at 25th and Downing. We are Title I, 92% free and reduced lunch rate. And we are an EOP site for DPS, so 20% of our students are homeless. I'm here today because I am fearful of the future. I am fearful of the future of the children at Whittier, and I am fearful of the future of the children of Colorado.
That's right.
Right now, Colorado, we've got a lot of work to do. Statewide, not proficient in reading, 39% of third graders, 31% of 10th graders, not proficient in math, 50% of third graders, and 50% of 10th graders. Isn't this embarrassing, Colorado?
Yes!
We can do better.
Yes! We can do better!
I have a list of 40s to share with you about Colorado. Median student-teacher ratio in primary level schools, 40th out of 50 states. In technology in our schools, 41st. In closing the achievement gap for our fourth graders, 42nd. In state and local support for higher ed per capita, 49th.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And adjusted for regional cost differences in per pupil funding, 40th. But per capita income, 13th. Isn't this embarrassing, Colorado?
Yes, it is!
We can do better. So how do we compare in our per pupil spending? Compared to our nation, we are $1,900 below average. Compared to Nebraska, we spend $3,200 less per pupil. Wyoming, $7,700 less. Now this data is from 2007. And what do we know now about this 2007 data? Faced with our present trajectory, that is as good as it's going to get. For Whittier K-8, this is a depressing prospect. I want to do a little exercise with all of us here. I'm going to read you a list, and I'm going to ask you to think about your child's school or the school with which you are most familiar. And I'm going to ask you, please raise your hand each time I say something that your school does not have. Raise your hand if your school does not have this. Music. Band. Drama. Paraprofessionals in every classroom. Team sports. PE. Student council. Decent carpeting in your classrooms. A heating system that works. Non-academic after-school clubs like yearbook or debate. Did you notice whose hand went up every single time? Whittier has absolutely nothing on this list. Isn't that embarrassing, Colorado?
Yes!
We can do better.
Yes, we can!
Whittier kids work hard. Whittier kids excel. Whittier kids deserve better. We are not a wealthy school. We are a tiny PTA in a Title I school. We can't raise $100,000 a year to cover those embarrassing gaps. And PTAs and PTOs shouldn't have to raise those funds anyway. I personally believe that we, as PTAs, are often enabling an embarrassing funding gap to go unfelt by our communities. Unfelt pain translates into uninspired decisions. So how have these budget cuts affected Whittier, right up the street? This past year, our budget was cut by $100 per student. So our social worker and our school nurse were cut from an already abysmal 3 days a week to 1. We were able to beg back 1 day a week for each of them because of our homeless population, but it was a challenge. Then we ran out of copy paper at the end of our year, and we had to ask a local hospital, St. Joe's, to provide. Isn't this embarrassing, Colorado?
Yes, it is.
We can do better.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Now we hear that for next year, the proposal is to reduce funding by another $500 for students. So what does that mean for Whittier? Cutting at least one teacher, no money for field trips, and no money for supplies. Our teachers are going to have to buy their own. Isn't this embarrassing, Colorado?
Yes.
We can do better.
Yes, we
Yes, we
can.
can.
I don't want to paint Whittier as a bleak place. Whittier is doing so much to close the achievement gap for our children. In 2008, for improvement in reading scores, Whittier was #1 in DPS and number 15 in the entire state. In 2009, 73% of our third graders tested proficient in reading. That's same or better than the rich schools down the street. Last year, our 8th graders had a 50% pass rate for advanced placement algebra. The average DPS pass rate is 5%. So how does Whittier do it? We have a frugal, brilliant, dedicated principal, Mr. J. Palmer, who invests the school's meager resources in paras, in all the classrooms up till 5th grade, and in hiring highly qualified teachers. 60% of our teachers have advanced degrees. Can someone please show me the fact in Whittier's budget? Can someone please point to the waste, fraud, and abuse? Of course you can't. We are hanging by a thread. Colorado, we cannot afford to cut that thread. We cannot afford to go backwards in supporting our kids. We understand that the economy means that there has to be cuts, and we understand the need to share the cuts in the population, but do we have to do it on the backs of our children? Here's my message to the voters of Colorado. It's time to rise up and say, enough is enough. Say with me, enough is enough. We must storm that ballot box, and we must unshackle our legislators so they can provide the funding our schools deserve. Enough is enough. And here's what I urge our legislators. Number 1, please do everything you can not to require us to squeeze more blood out of our lifeless school budgets. Number 2, please leave no stone unturned in your search for additional resources to invest in our kids.
Yes.
Yes.
And
We know it's hard to figure out how to balance all of these interests, but please find a better balance. Don't rely on our kids alone to be the ones to sacrifice. And here's what I ask of our Colorado corporations and businesses. Please think about your future customers as well as your present bottom line. Colorado,
Right on.
we are all in this together, and we are going to get through it together.